Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to another episode of the Element Podcast. How do I normally say this? What's happening, all my woods people? Today we are not in a vehicle. We are, well, technically we're not at the mouse house either, right?
Technically, we are in an adjoining structure to the mouse house.
It's been a minute since I've been here, dude. I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm a bad guest, but I feel like you haven't invited me over in a while.
Well,
I had to invite myself for this
I feel
one.
like I sometimes feel bad that you have to drive all the way out here. And probably since about mid-September, we've been flying around like crazy people and doing podcasts on the road and all that kind of stuff. So,
that's true.
The summertime, like chill time,
Yeah,
we do a lot of stuff around
I like coming out here because there's actually decent food because y'all got
That's
a
good.
kitchen.
Thanks, yeah.
I don't have a kitchen, so there's like not any good food in my house. I was eating like a red velvet chocolate bar that I got for Christmas on the way over here. And
Man.
I should probably stop eating this thing. I didn't even eat half of it.
Yeah. It's all
so-
right, dude. You just getting ready to buy some of that XL stuff for next season.
Dadgummit. Dude, that's for real. I hadn't run in so long.
I haven't either, but I lifted a little bit this morning, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of trying to get
Dang, dude.
back in. Dude, I'm probably like, I'm telling you, man, those midday fast food trips hunting get to you.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been thinking about like, I just turned 30.
Yeah.
All right. Life's different.
Yeah. Dude,
It's going to get a lot harder for me to cut this weight when the summertime comes. Because right now I kind of have been on that pattern for the last 10 years of like gain a little bit in the winter, get pretty skinny in the summer, and it just all evens out. Also, probably not very healthy for your cholesterol and all that stuff. I have never got that stuff checked. So I'm not just going to just let that ride.
is that something, like, do we need to be doing that?
You do. You're older than I am.
Dadgummit, dude. We're the same age. What are you talking about?
Oh, we are for about another, 17 days?
Oh, 17 years or so. So, anyway, all that aside, today we are coming to you guys and girls just thankful that all you guys listen to us and stay active with us, just supporting things like wildlife conservation, public land access, respectful hunting and consumption, and all the crazy things that you and I do, right?
That's right, man. Happy 100th episode, Tyler.
Yeah, I know, dude.
100 episodes, dude.
You know, we didn't even talk about, like, the 1 year anniversary, I don't think, did we? Like,
I think we just breezed it over because we're busy.
Yeah. And now we're like basically at 2 years, 100 episodes, which we missed like a week or two throughout the last 2 years somewhere. So we're really actually like right at almost 2 years coming up real quick here.
Yeah.
So pretty exciting, man. Exciting times.
I like it, man. I can't wait to do at least another 100 more or more.
I know, dude. 1,000 more.
Man, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
How old are we going to be when so that's, oh man.
30.
Yeah. 30 forever.
For the next 17 years.
Hashtag 30 forever on all the element posts from here on out.
That's right. Yeah. So in retrospect, Casey and I today are going to spend the day talking about just memorable moments, whether they're cool or odd or fun or whatever, over the last 100 episodes, and technically over the last, like, friendship, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
You know, like, since we started kind of thinking, man, we should probably, like, we talk so much about so many things. Like, we should probably record this stuff so we remember what we're talking about. And that's kind of the gist of this episode, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And just kind of a celebration of like support from everyone. And just, I don't want y'all to take this as like just another way for us to plug the Element Podcast, but like I want you to know that we're grateful for your listenership and for your support and for your encouragement, because, man, I know it's kind of a common thing to claim to be like the regular folks, but dude, you and I really are regular folks. Like, money issues and, just married men who have families to take care of and all this and that. And sometimes, especially in the last probably month, I've been really run down, tired, and like put through the ringer with some stuff. And having support of listeners to sometimes reach out and give you encouragement, man, it feels good.
Yeah, we've had some cool messages lately.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Like, one in particular that, like, I was like, dang.
I know, man.
That's cool, man. I appreciate that as much as you do, I'm sure. And man, it has been a long, hard season. Which, I mean, I think, like, when you hunt as much as we do, it always gets to the point where, like, you're getting pretty tired, know, and everything starts to bother you more than what it normally would. But then when you stack that with, like, very little actual deer on the ground, it can be pretty.
I was thinking about that this morning because I was like, man, this deer season has worn me down. And I'm going to be so sad in a couple days when it's over.
Me too.
Because it's like, what's going to fill that void in my earthly life at this point?
Nothing until, like, March, when you can start fishing again.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be tough.
You're just going to eat and lift weights. Try to gains, bro, gains.
You know it.
Yeah,
beans and cornbread.
Yeah, that's it. I just I left the cornbread out, but the beans were good, dude.
Yeah, thanks.
Some chows in there.
Some chows, yep.
Real quick before we get too far into this, just want to remind everybody that we are doing a push for 1,000 YouTube subscribers. We're almost there, and when we get there, we're giving away 4 premium memberships, annual memberships for OnX Maps. So you have a pretty good chance if you can be one of those subscribers on YouTube. All you got to do is go to your app, pull it up, go to the Element Podcast channel, and subscribe.
It's a great time to get an annual membership right now, honestly, because you can start map scouting for the whole year, and then you'll have the OnX membership for the whole season.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
if you like start it in mid-October, then you're map scouting for like stuff you don't have the OnX membership for the next year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt, dude. It is a good time to start. But I'm thinking, like, after you use this thing, you're gonna be like, yeah, it's worth some money.
Probably so.
It's worth more than what they're asking for it. So
yeah.
But anyway, let's take the listener back to the beginning.
The beginning.
The beginning.
The genesis of the element.
Dang, I like it, dude.
Ooh, dun dun dun. So, Tyler was seeking friends via the internet.
Dang.
Oh, we've talked about this before, but you and I actually kind of, kicked off our friendship. Like, we had hung out one time and went fishing here locally for a day and had a lot of fun, if I remember right. That was the good trip, right? We've done 2 trips to that place, and one of them wasn't good.
Yeah.
But that was a good trip. And then we decided, hey, we both like to fly fish a lot. Let's go somewhere. And we ended up going to a place that I'd never thought about. And
earlier you were talking to me about not doing, like, quick turnaround trips as much and, like, spending the extra day or whatever, the extra night. This was not one of those trips. Like, this was a trip that like, I've never done a trip that was harder in such a short span, I don't think.
Oh, yeah. That was about as, like, full throttle as you can get on, like, getting a trip done. Like, we drove, you drove the whole way and back. Like, it was like a 14-hour drive, right? 15-hour drive. And you did that. We fished 1 full day. Is that right?
2.
2 full days.
Yeah. 2 days of driving, 2 days of fishing.
fun stuff. But that was a cool trip, man.
Arizona.
And
I don't think we. I don't
did we
think
not
I
say where it was?
I didn't let you get to that part. I don't think. Sorry.
Yeah. Black River.
Black River, White Mountains.
White Mountains, Arizona. Yeah. Apache National Forest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's where the big elk are, and we didn't see a single big elk.
No, we saw a pretty good one.
Did we?
Yeah, we saw a pretty good velvet bull.
I don't remember that.
It was like on the way out, kind of near where we saw that black bear. Back and to the right, kind of a little open.
Did
spot.
I not see him very good?
Maybe not.
I don't remember.
I think maybe not.
But you did find an elk shed.
I did.
That's cool.
This is my one and only elk shed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to change that. But
wild fly fishing, like close to the bank, which you would think like somebody would have picked that up. But
yeah, also high.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't think that there'd be an elk up there shedding an antler at, I don't know, what we're at, like 8,500 feet?
Yeah, so maybe.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I can't remember much about that trip. I need to go watch that video.
Go watch the
again.
video. What's it called? It's black and white,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. That was like one of our first videos to do together.
Black and white, right? It's not black and
black
white.
and white. That's
It's
right.
Black River in the White Mountains.
That's right. That's
so
right.
funny.
Getting fancy. But the cool part about that trip really is the way on the way home, like the conversations that we had about like what like the future of our friendship kind of looked like and what we were going to do, and we decided that we wanted to do a podcast, and that was kind of your thing, right? I had never really thought about that. It's something you'd had on your mind for a while.
Yeah, I had for a while. Like before I ever started this podcast, there was like a year and a half of thinking about how to do this. And
I wish you'd have hit me up then.
Yeah, I know. we would be such idiots back then. Dude.
Oh, what's new?
Like I'm glad that I didn't record myself back then because
Yeah.
it's bad enough right now.
Do you have any of those? Okay, so
Yeah.
on that trip, we decided that we were going to do a podcast. We also like talked about how like I wasn't that much of a whitetail hunter at that point in my life, and I was like, man, I just like to elk hunt, and then like it took me all of like 4 months to just be all eat up with it again.
Yeah.
I just kind of took a sabbatical because 2013 was a tough season for me, but also a very enjoyable season. But anyways, we recorded some practice episodes that shall not see the light of day for quite a while, I doubt.
No, we were so dumb. We didn't have a clue what we were doing, which we still kind of don't, but
No. Hey, at
really
least you
didn't.
knew like what audio equipment was. I didn't have a clue. I was like, I'm glad I can do this on my phone.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was in we from there we took to the woods that fall. You shot an elk? That was 2016.
Yeah, I shot an elk that
Shot
season.
an elk. And then you and I followed you around. I had never really done much public deer hunting at that point and wanted to give it a try. And you had quite a bit of experience, especially in 2013. So I started following you around, just trying to learn the ropes because I hadn't really even hunted in, North Texas, East Texas, whatever. I hadn't hunted anywhere but West and South Texas really at all. And so like it's crazy because I look at it now and I'm like, I can see a deer trail now that I used to couldn't see because I was always looking for the trails that I had actually seen before that looked like trails, and it doesn't look like that out in North and East Texas. And so, I got to ride and learn the ropes from you, and I had to buy the old public hunting permit just to film you the whole year.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot, man. We had so much fun doing that. And then that postseason, we did a ton of scouting. And I look back on that, man, there was so much fun, man.
I remember that year because that season of scouting, we like really were like hyped up about buck bedding.
Yeah.
Because we had listened to a lot of those like Midwestern whitetail guys talk about it, and we were like looking for buck beds, and we found some stuff, but we kind of came to some conclusions of how like it's kind of areas out here that and that's kind of, I guess, kind of our morphosis of like coming into our own about like our opinions on deer hunting kind of started. Like I mean, you probably were there with different stuff, but like regionality is a deal with whitetails. Like it just because it works for some dude who has fence rows, wood lots, and ag fields doesn't mean it works, in the bottomlands of Texas or whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I just like reminiscing about those days, some of the like cold days in January, we were stomping around and like when you're really getting after it and walking several miles, It's nice when it's like 30 degrees. You know what I mean? So I was thinking about some of those cold days we were out there, man. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of interesting how, like, when we finally started this podcast, we thought like we had to be experts. Like we were like, we have to kind of at least have an idea what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Like we can't. So we were trying to learn as much as we could. And I think that, like, now we know we can just be dumb and people will like us because we make them feel smart, right?
Some people will like us.
Yeah, some people, yeah. The rest of them will listen to other podcasts, I guess. But one thing I remember as being, like, early on, do you remember when we decided we were going to float a river and in the afternoon and like come dark, we were like, hey, Cassie, can you pick us up?
I remember that. Man, that was and that was really like, we've balanced out more since then, but that was back in the day when I was like super optimistic, like overly optimistic, like when I didn't need to be, about like, oh, we can do it, you know? And we did it. It just was, it was not, I mean, we didn't even really accomplish what we wanted to do that day because it was mostly a whitetail trip, and we did very little white. I did find a sweet deadhead, though.
The coolest deadhead, dude.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was neat.
It was a cool
it was like
experience.
stuck in the river bottom.
Yeah.
We need to post that picture again. I feel like a lot of people would have missed that because it was posted so long ago. But it's a cool picture.
And there's a PLC from that, I think, right?
I think there is. Yeah.
Back there.
Man, that's a long time ago. That was like one of the first PLCs, probably.
Probably
That
so.
might have been the first one. Anyway, looking back at like the beginning of the podcast, when we finally started getting into it, we did a few of these first podcasts together to try to get the hang of things. And then we thought, okay, well, since we're not experts, we need to bring an expert in to talk about something. And the first guest we had,
Oh, my.
Whit Fosberg, who is an expert in all regards.
And, don't mind me, guys. Just one of the greatest voices in conservation in Washington, D.C. out there. You know, that. How were we that lucky?
Do you remember how scared we were?
Oh, yeah. I remember. We were sitting on your couch. I'd just probably been mudding or painting your garage or something. And you're like, hey, I talked to this lady who ended up being Kristen, who's like one of our besties.
One of our bros.
Yeah. She hooked us up with the president of the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. And I was like, okay.
Can we not talk to him, actually?
Can you give us a couple months? Yeah.
Are you got any interns or anything?
I don't know, dude, but that was like a really great thing for us because like Whit's such a pro and he's so good at interviews that like it's almost like he kind of taught us how to do this a little bit, you know?
For sure. Yeah, he makes it easy because sometimes you get, I mean, there are guests that you'll have. I think everybody that podcasts knows this. Like, they're super pro. They're very good at what they do, but podcasting is not what they do. So when you try to ask them questions, they don't know how to elaborate very well sometimes, maybe. And so, but Whit is not like that. And I just remember the biggest issue, the thing I was scared about and on the edge of my seat the whole time was just the audio, because we had never really. Like, we had done a couple of test runs, but we just didn't know how the audio was going to work out. And it's very, if you haven't ever done it, like putting it all together is kind of a hard, interesting
A lot of chords and connections and junctions.
Yeah.
But you know what was cool about Whit, and I found this out through the years of, you know, being his friend. I hope he's okay with this because we call him his friends.
Yeah, at least
we're friends.
At least he's your friend. You may not be his friend.
Yeah, but anyways, like Whit, you have people who are gamers, and Whit isn't a gamer. Like, we've interviewed some guests who like are kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, and then whenever we press record, it's like, man, they were good. Like, Whit is good on the podcast and off the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, as a person, talking to him, having conversation, the dude's the real deal.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I remember he was asking me like some pretty personal questions, and I was like, I didn't know that he knew that about me.
Yeah, he asked you about playing ball at SMU or something. So like, he did his homework.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
It's cool. So anyway, I remember, one thing I remember from those like early episodes was like how much fun we had hanging out, eating elk in the RV.
Those are good days.
And like shooting, man, podcasting in the RV, like late at night, man. Like
getting yelled at by my wife at midnight to go home.
Yeah. Y'all go home. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I just seem like it just seems like those were the good old days, which I guess like right now we're kind of doing exactly what we were doing back then. But like, it just seems like there was a little less on our plates at the time. And like that we could just enjoy, like hanging out and broing it up, and doing hunting stuff. And
Yeah.
now it's a little more like, almost like trying to justify every time we do one of these. It's like, how do you justify this as being a good use of time as compared to like all the million other things we've got as responsibilities right now? I don't know. It just feels weird sometimes that when I look back, and I think it probably always feels this way, like you always look back and go, those are the good old days. But maybe they're just all good old days, and when you're living in the season, it's like type 2 fun or whatever, you know?
Maybe so.
That's just something I remember. Like, I remember also, like, right around that time was when I first found, like, my first target buck on public. Teenager.
Yeah, it was. Who still out there running around?
That's
2 years later.
2 years later, he's still out there, and I've never seen him on the hoof.
Yeah.
Which makes me sad.
Man.
I don't know if I'd rather see him on the hoof and him not getting quite within bow range, or if I'd rather just like have this mystery still.
Yeah, as long as you know he's alive, I think the mystery's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I
don't know he's alive right now, actually.
I mean, well, yeah, it's true.
Cards getting stolen out of our stupid...
Gotta love that public land game. But, I mean, last year, I saw Leader on the hoof and couldn't get a shot, and that was, like, really terrible.
Yeah, I was with you.
Yeah.
That was really terrible.
That was not good. It did not feel good.
We were grunting him as hard as we could, trying to get him in, and he just didn't want it.
But
but he's still alive, right?
I think that's him.
I think it is too. There's almost no doubt.
There's a front view that doesn't look like him.
Really?
It's the same buck.
Well, his side view looks just
like him.
Yeah,
I think it's him.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It's like he got narrower.
Really?
It's strange.
Is he legal?
Yeah, he's legal.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Somewhere like between the wit talk, somewhere after the wit talk, we actually went to Iowa. I remember that.
Yeah.
And we were like,
speaking of a bombing trip.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was very cold. We've talked about it, you know. We actually did a PLC from that trip that's like one of our most viewed PLCs on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I just remember, I guess I might have been naive to think that I was going to actually draw that tag. But I don't know. But this year I didn't draw it this year either. Mm-hmm. So like, I have to draw it next year, I think. But now we're like sitting on like 2 years of knowledge that I don't know if it's even relevant anymore or not.
I think that going up there almost, well, when you draw the tag and go up there and hunt, it'll tell if this is true or not, but it's almost like having 2 years to mull over what we went up there and saw and to like bounce other hunts that we've done in other places off of that. I think it's going to help a lot.
Oh, I think so too.
You know, it might be nice to have the MRI too, like, you know, to go this year or something. I don't know. Right. But like, I feel like we went up there still a little naive to hunting that area of the country. And through like getting to interview people and just doing the podcast, we've learned a lot more about that type of hunting. Right. You know?
Yeah, it's true, man. I don't know. I can tell you this: 2 years of waiting of extra waiting, I guess I feel like has made me like super jacked about it.
That's good.
I'm excited.
That's good, man.
For sure. Somewhere like I think it was. Well, see, that would have been like early March, and then sometime in like mid-April, we actually went on our first like public land turkey hunt.
What were we thinking?
I mean, if it was somewhere else, some other state, we would have been thinking right. But no, we did Texas.
It in Texas, and there's just very few public turkeys, at least, you know, that you can go do OTC in Texas. Yeah. But I think that trip taught us a lot too. I actually had written this down beforehand. Like, that's when I learned that like sometimes you got to endure like the terrible stuff, like like roadblocks and the hardships and just like the really tough hunting, and then not get the payoff. I feel like every like media outlet you see, YouTube video or whatever, it's like this story of struggle and perseverance, and at the end there's like a payoff. And there wasn't on that trip. We went out there twice, hunted hard, and didn't kill anything. And that's kind of, and I don't know, maybe I'm like not in a good place on this, but like that's when I probably learned that it's sometimes you're just not going to kill something, and it's okay to just deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't want to be complacent with just like going for just the experience always. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That might sound terrible, but do you know what I'm saying?
I know. I feel the same way. One thing that I like, and this is kind of a stem off of what you're saying, maybe, but like one thing that I don't want to have happen again is go out to like someplace hunting something. And I know this will probably happen, but like I don't like not feeling like I'm in the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I walk around on 3 days on public land in Texas trying to locate a gobbler and I see one like roost in a tree in the very waning moments of the day, like on the other side, like
on
across
private.
the creek on private. That's just, I don't feel like I'm in the game the whole time. Mm-mm. You know, like if we don't hear birds or see birds, like if I can't stalk them, I mean, I don't care. Like some of the hardest things that we have done is try to stalk white-tailed deer in the wide open country. But I can do that. If I can do that and attempt that all day and not be successful, that's fine with me. Mm-hmm. But if I'm like looking for one of these species of game, that is tough. I do not like doing that at all. Like I like to, like if, for instance, I've never hunted pronghorn, but I want to. And I just want to shoot one or have the opportunity to stalk them all day. Mm-hmm. Like I don't need to go shoot a 90-incher. And like look all throughout the country to find one, you know, so that I can stalk it. I just want to be in the game. So
yeah, and that's kind of why those doe hunts are appealing a little bit, you know.
Yeah,
like, I know there's a bunch of pronghorn does everywhere you go.
Right,
so that'd be cool.
And you can get 25 pounds of meat off of them. Which is
good old 95-degree sunshine meat off of some pronghorn does.
No, I'm talking smack. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I do remember when we kind of talked about, you know, which this is celebrating our 100th episode, so we're kind of talking about the podcast. But during that podcast episode, when we talked about that turkey hunt, we also, believe we talked about your elk harvest from 2016 and then my doe harvest from 2016, which was the first videoed harvest for the element, was the 2016 doe, I believe.
It was, yeah. That was the first time I'd ever filmed.
You didn't film it. That was last year. That was actually a year after.
Oh, no, you're right.
So this is the one I didn't self-film.
Oh, shoot, yeah.
Yeah. So you went to Colorado, and I was pulling for you the whole time. I just had a good feeling, you know, but I didn't go with you and video you. Mm-hmm. And then in October, I had permission around here and self-filmed a doe hunt, which turned out a pretty cool little thing, you know, or whatever. It's kind of like a rite of passage for the season for me, it seems like, every year is to try to shoot a doe in October the last 3 or 4 years. And that was our first, like, kill on film. I remember that. And what's funny is that I have been filming hunts. It's not really that funny. I haven't laughed much about it. But I've been filming hunts with like buddies since like 2010. Mm-hmm. And it's 2019, and I still have only been filmed shooting one buck, and that was last year, the nameless buck.
Woo!
So, and you know, like it's always been a self-film deal. And like even with One-Eyed Jack, like we've been filming all year, early November, and then we get into late November. We go on a trip. Justin, my buddy, and he films. You know, like we're looking for different bucks or whatever. So we're sitting in the same stand with the potential, like you and I do, with the potential of both having an opportunity. But technically, you know, he's filming me at times, and he did that for 5 days, I think, out of a 6-day trip or something, maybe 6 days, and then he had to leave he was going to leave in the afternoon. He's a night owl, so he can drive all night, you know. And so he was going to leave in the afternoon, and so we hunted the morning or whatever we did, and nothing. And then that afternoon, he starts loading the truck, and I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to go out. Be careful going home, you know. Be careful. And so I will go out to my stand, you know, and like before he even left camp, I had shot him. So it was like 4:30, 4:45, something like that. It wasn't super late, 4:30. Yeah. Pretty early, you know, and I had shot Jack, but I had to self-film it. And he came and did like all the B-roll after and everything, but it was like such a perfect window that he missed to not get me on film, you know, and to help me out. So
yeah,
I was kind of sad, but obviously really happy too, you know.
Yeah. Show.
Speaking of Justin, I believe I've referred to this several times, but I think it was episode 21. That was a kind of a special episode for me because I got to have him on, and like Justin and I have been through some pretty tough stuff together. One of the least serious, but like still extremely disappointing, was the story that he actually told on the podcast where we were somehow unable to recover a buck that we chased for 7 miles. We trailed for 7 miles after being hit, and just a crazy story. If you haven't heard it, go back and listen because I made a similar shot this year. Similarly, I guess it hit the same probably organs for the most part. I feel like Justin actually might have had some lung. I don't know, but and so I was very, very cautious about my shot on Frank this year because of that experience with Justin. So it was nuts.
Yeah.
Very cool though to have him and you and I all sit around at my house, and I always like doing the ones in person better than the ones on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
It's just way more natural.
It's way better, way more natural, a lot more dynamic to it, and that was actually kind of my first chance just to get to hang out with Justin. It was cool to like be an observer in that too, because I wasn't there for that experience. So like I was truly listening to the story as you were telling it, and like questions I had about that story were real because I was like, oh, what about this? Because they didn't know it.
Yeah.
It was
it was nuts, man. It was nuts. But shortly after, I remember the first podcast I had to do without you.
Tony Sastry?
Tony Sastry. Yeah. Oh, Tony Sastry. Yeah. And so like, I don't know if I'll ever forget that convo because I was sitting there. He and I were sitting, just us, on the back patio at the lodge, the place where I grew up fishing. We had a huge pot of onions, peppers, butter, and crawfish fat. And we were just talking deer hunting, cooking, and family. And he just had this big paddle, and he was just stirring it the whole time. You can probably hear it in the background of the podcast, And I just remember smelling that and just hanging out with this guy who's like kind of a celebrity,
Yeah.
I was like, this is cool. And the weather was nice, man. We were out on the back patio looking at Lake Fort, So it was cool. Mm-hmm. And then I guess it wasn't too many. It may have been like the next week or two, probably like 2 weeks later, because I think he was there for the Skeeter tournament, which is early June, and we went in late June to the Black Canyon.
Dude, trip of a lifetime. I can't believe we almost went somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like it was like a week before that we were debating on if we were going to take that trip or go to a different place in the Rockies.
Yeah, which is now dry, right?
Yeah, which doesn't exist.
So I'm like, dang, we might should have gone.
Yeah, no.
But I'm,
Oh my gosh, man!
When you talk about like timing and everything,
yeah, we hit that thing perfect. The footage is epic. Like that's like whenever we first started hanging out, and you were telling me about like your reasons for filming. I don't want to say just justify because apparently that's not what you're supposed to do. Is justify your stuff these days. But like your reason for filming was to like preserve the memory, right? And like, how many times have I watched Rock Trolls, man?
I watched it today.
Did
I hate
you?
to admit that. Like I was working on the internet, and I have to do that on my truck because I don't have internet in my house, and I had it playing in the background, watching it.
That's as good as it gets, man. We might not ever make another fly fishing film as good as that trip was.
Yeah.
The only way we can is to go back there and just stay longer.
I
don't know.
For real. Like we should just like do a 5-dayer and try to hit the like swarm as it comes in and then as it comes out too.
Yeah.
Because we were like on the back end of it,
Yeah. But just a all around experience. I talk a lot about like, hunting for experience or whatever, or just seeking experiences. Like the danger involved with that. Like it's no joke.
Did you see the guy's comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did he say? Like how many bodies had been?
He said, I think he went on a 4-day trip. He said 3 out of 4 days there were rescue crews in there. They were pulling corpses out of the bottom.
Unreal.
Scary. Like I never felt like I was going to die except for like one time coming out.
Yeah.
But
hey, but you and I felt like there was another dude that might die.
Yeah, we did.
That didn't make the cut for the film.
If we hadn't told him which way to go, he might have just died up there.
Oh, I know it. But it was like one of those deals where we had to put down the film equipment and just become humans.
Yeah.
Like we were almost like search and rescue.
Yeah.
And this guy.
2 guys.
2 guys. Both older than us, but in good shape for their age.
Quite a bit older.
Yeah. One of them took the wrong turn and like climbed what, like
They were
1,000 feet?
They left out one morning, and we're like smoking fish. We're like, can we not do this? Can we not get lost right now? And so these two guys leave out, and they pass us on the river, going up. They'll, see you later, man. Good to meet you, whatever. They take off. And like an hour and a half later or whatever, one of them comes back and goes, hey, have you seen Brian or whatever his name was? I think it was Brian.
I think it's right.
And we were like,
it was like much more panic.
Yes.
Like, I can't find Brian. Have you seen him?
Yeah, and we were like, this is not good.
Oh,
and
no.
we're first thing I'm thinking is like, why are y'all not walking together?
Yeah, how do you get separated?
And so anyway, Brian had gone up the wrong canyon, which was basically only sheep access.
It's like avalanche chute, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, it was that was epic trip, and the opportunity to like, catch our personal best like over and over and over again. Especially you.
How many times did we break that? My gracious.
It was very, very cool trip. And just like, even though there was I guess there was 2 other groups down there, it was really cool just to be down there and like feel like you're one of few that ever have been down there.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's kind of like that. You talk about this, like you'll meet some people and like you're like by statute best friends for like 2 days, right?
Yeah.
Because like you're in the same situation together and you have to coexist, and that's kind of what it was. And we were all there for like a common goal. Not everybody was fishing as hard as we were, but like just the adventure of it. So the whole idea is to like make each other's experience as good as you can, and not like be a jerk, or whatever. And like it was pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it was cool. And you're right. It's interesting to think about like you have a pretty good friend for 2 days of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those dudes there like were offering us the wine they packed down. Like first of all, like
they packed
wine. Okay,
they were way older than us. Yeah. They packed wine. They packed
they want the creature comforts,
frying stuff.
Yeah,
grease.
We were like Mountain House dried potatoes. Yeah,
10 pounds of peanut butter.
Yeah, for real. I learned a lot since then.
Yeah,
but, it was very cool just to like. I don't know, just have a kinship with people that you didn't know because you all were kind of in awe of this, piece of creation.
Yeah, it was cool. And so we got back from that trip, started putting together a video. And then not long after that, we started getting ready for elk season. And we had a guy on the podcast that I think was pretty special for you.
Oh, Corey Jacobson. That was a pretty cool deal.
Yeah.
That was another one of those like, I don't know, starstruck moments where I probably sounded stupid on the podcast, but it's a dude that I like learned a lot from. He didn't know that, but watched a ton of his videos and stuff. It's a pretty cool thing, man, and that kind of hyped us up and talked you into finally going elk hunting with me.
Yeah, which is good, man. We got a cool video out of that.
We did. That was a lot of fun. Spiked Out is real good. I watch that one often too.
Yeah.
And we were so close.
Yeah.
To getting it done in style. Both of us there, but man, hopefully I'll kill a lot more elk in my life. But that was a trip that I didn't kill an elk, and I wouldn't change anything about the trip for the world.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so much fun. Like it was like the perfect elk camp. And no offense to other people who I've shared elk camp with before, but like 4 young dudes going up there, all believers in Christ who want some of the same things and don't want to like, man, there's a lot of people going hunting trips and like want to go like party and mess around in town and stuff. That's just not what we were there for.
Yeah.
And we
got after it and went to sleep.
Yeah, ate good food.
That's right.
Brennan killed an elk, so we got to eat elk while we were there. Like it's a lot of fun.
That was one of the best nights of my life. I mean, like the night that we ate the backstrap and then sat around a campfire and talked on the podcast for however long, and talked for longer than that.
It's funny you say right there because I think
yes, 2 of the biggest knowers in the whole world were on the podcast.
Yeah, it's true. Well, when it gets late like that and you get very relaxed in your conversation. I just did it,
Yeah.
In your conversation, it's tough to not do that because that's really how we talk.
Yeah.
It can't stop now.
You cannot stop. I tell you, it's one of those things that please don't listen to it or listen for it, because it's going to happen. But one of the things that I love about that podcast the most is like you can hear the fire crackling in the background because we were using all that spruce, and it was just eating it up so quick. But that was just, man, that was a good night. One of my favorite things I always think about when I think about us eating that backstrap is I have this video clip of you. I think it made the film. But you're eating backstrap, and I'm like, what you got there? And you just turn, and your eyes are like bloodshot because you're so tired, But you're like so happy, and your mouth is like greasy. You're like, backstrap, baby.
Oh, just mountain manning.
Yeah, that was a good time.
It was fun.
But one thing, right before we actually, somewhere before that episode, I think it was right before that because we usually do this that time of year, was our first TRCP summit.
Yeah.
And we probably the funnest episode I've ever done, but at the same time, maybe like the least transferable to probably our audience. Like, I don't know if they enjoyed it as much as I did, but we did, we had a pretty late night conversation going after all the meetings of one day.
I would say it was the Element crew and then 3 of the best young minds in conservation around a table.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, I hate to do this because we're having a good time right now, but do you mind if I set some mics up? And we had some like headsets and stuff, but I just didn't want to ruin everything, so I just put them down in front of all of us, and so Brian Koch, Elliot Woods, and Garrett Long. And
you tried to not say Blong.
I did. And so, and you and I, and we tried to make it work audio wise. I know it didn't. It was hard to keep track of who was saying what because there were some funny things.
Dude, ocelots and chunk build on the wall, man.
Yeah,
it was super funny.
It was good. So I do remember that. But then, I guess sometime, I don't know when this was. This might have been like preseason that year. We were trying to give some good, kind of tactical, kind of like, not like your normal tips or whatever kind of thing. And I remember we got to talk with my good friend, who's now our good friend, Cody Beaver. And that was a cool one for me because I spent a ton of days in the woods and on the water and in the water with him. And so it was cool like to sit around in his new man cave and just like listen and revisit some of these old stories that like ended with all these bucks that were around us. You know what I mean? And so
that's cool for me because I built that man cave.
Yeah. And he's got some big heads in there. Man.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. So, pretty near that one. I think it was episode 41. Controversial corn. That was actually like our most popular episode for a long time.
It was.
It still might be. I don't know.
It's
I
one of
checked on
those
it
times that it like proved to me that like you and I can just hold our own and not have to have a guest if we don't need to.
Yeah, I think you did say that. You finally were like, I think we are okay. We can, because really, I mean, honestly, like sometimes we're just like, you know what? We can sit here and spit tips and stuff at people, but like, sometimes it's just cool to tell a story, it's just cool to have your personal anecdotal evidence of something and just know that like, maybe you're not right in Louisiana, but you're right here, or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not right. It's just the way you think it is, so, and you're right about that though. We finally started to maybe have a little confidence in ourselves.
Well, that's when we figured out that it's okay. Well, I don't know if that's exactly when, but like, it's part of what molded us to think that it's okay to not be an expert about things, but still have opinions about things, because a lot of times if you sit here and speak as an expert, it's kind of like people are in like a college class, you know what I mean? Which is good for some things, but who wants to sit in that environment all the time? I really enjoy like the concept of us talking about things and maybe people listen and also have input. And then when they give us their input back, it's more of like a conversation that we're having.
Oh, me too. For sure. I know that like, I guess the next thing that I can remember that kind of happened to us was or I guess as far as podcast goes, Rut Raging Rooster.
Oh my gosh.
So
yes,
I mean, like I really wanted to reenact this story again this year, but we just weren't quite able to connect on all the dots, but it just like super fresh story in the truck on the way home from the Midwest after killing a giant buck on public land. Like I wanted it to happen again this year. It didn't happen, but how fun was that? Because we we're telling the story, and then we pull up to a Whataburger. We're like, let's get some dinner, and we ate Whataburger, and then we like finished the story, and I was like, this is the best day of my life, dude. I mean, got a huge skull in the back, or horns in the back of the truck, and we're riding around eating Whataburger, and just talking about the hunt, and somehow we're making a podcast out of this thing. So.
Yeah, that was surreal, is what that was.
Yeah,
just a whole trip. It was just crazy. I mean, and of course, there's a YouTube video about it. It's our most successful video we've done. I mean, for good reason, because it was just, man, what an experience.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just not going to try to put a lot of words here, because just go watch the film. It's just. Mm-hmm. It's so much better in that format than me trying to tell you about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and the episode was cool too, the podcast episode.
That was because it was like just that I love moments of joy, and that was one of those deals where just riding home just high on life.
Dude, for real, man. So I guess like on the whitetail train here, we not too long after that, we talked to Garrett Rowe of Heads Up Decoy, and that basically like set the tone for our whole month of November this year. Like that conversation took us into a whole different thinking, and our whole month of November was spent like with behind a lot of decoying action, So, it's interesting that could happen.
Kind of helped us explore new country that we wouldn't have otherwise, too.
For sure, man. I mean, we had a great time doing that, which we've got some videos that have been posting from our, like, series, from Kansas, and we've got more. Actually, one posting really soon here. Hopefully it will be posted by the time this episode drops, where we like use the decoy a bunch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you know which one I'm talking about. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on one day behind a decoy. I don't know, a few episodes later, I think we got to talk with Joe Cortez, which was cool for me because I kind of got to like bridge that gap between like my old musician touring life and what I'm doing now. And talk about it in a broader terms of like just trying to like create a successful lifestyle, know. And Joe's just a super nice guy, and I really enjoyed getting to bring like two of my passions together, kind of.
Yeah,
I guess. Which he's not a musician anymore, but he understands. Like he lived the same life that I did.
Yeah, sure. And that's kind of one of those situations that I really enjoy in the podcasting world, when you can take somebody who like isn't exactly cut from the same cloth as like the whitetail tactics world or whatever, and I feel like that's what we did with Jesse Griffith's episode too.
It
was like I think 53 where we talked a lot about cuisine, and because Jesse's like got restaurants, and like cooking is like the big part of his life, but obtaining meat is another big part of his life too, so we can kind of connect on those levels. And that episode really kind of taught me a lot, or I guess I had to relearn some things, because I'd just come off a time in my life when I'd shot so many wild hogs that I just thought they were worthless, and I still don't have a great opinion of them. But like Jesse finds a way to, he jokingly says, shoot a hog, save the world, or something like that. I think it's his hashtag. But like he's found a way to like make the most of the situation we're in Texas with just the overpopulation of wild hogs. You know? And he's like,
what a cool guy, dude.
I know, man.
He's a cool dude.
Jesse, just move closer so we can hang out.
Well, he's previously from our hood, kind of. He was a North Texas guy. Yeah. So, I was, and I think it was for our anniversary, but my wife and I went down to Austin and ate at his restaurant down there, Daidoui. And, dude, it was amazing. And Jesse hooked us up. And I just, like, after that, like, I'm a Jesse Griffiths fan after that. I was like, I'm a fanboy, man, for
Dude,
sure.
He's got a famous name, too. Jesse Griffiths is a pretty, like, that's a good name.
Yeah, like, he could be like a cowboy.
Yeah.
Like a famous cowboy,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it wasn't long after that, after we talked to Jesse, one of my favorite overall just podcast, because I guess there was so much time there. There was definitely a lot of favorites, but we spent like 3 hours in the Tailwaters Fly Shop and just chatted with our buddy Sean Polk, and we did like the most epically long podcast ever.
So long it was 2 parts.
That's right. We had to split it into 2 parts, and we just like divulged our top 60 things. We each gave 20 things, and that was our 60th episode that we would do again or we wouldn't do again, like trips as far as hunting or fishing goes. And so that was cool, man. I had a good time on that one. Somewhere not long after that, we talked with Chris B. You really liked that podcast.
Yeah, man. It was just one of the things I've appreciated about podcasting in general is like how it connects you and connects people. And Chris is from a different part of the world, and he's even younger than we are, which isn't saying much to some people. But he's a young dude who really cares and really has a passion for archery. And I don't know, he just portrays hunting in a good light, man.
Yeah.
He just has a lot of fun, and he's so like, I wouldn't say he's like low key, but I mean, what's the right word? He's just like,
he always talks about like his hashtag is be real.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like that's kind of what you're getting at. Is like, he's just a real dude. He doesn't overhype things, but when he's excited, he is hype.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can just tell like he's genuine.
Yeah.
I feel like,
and it's a great look for hunting, man.
Yeah.
It's like one of those encouraging things to where like we're kind of torch holders now. You know, like some people are still clinging on to the torch, not passing it on yet, but like it's kind of in our hands. And Chris is not like a next generation, but he's like the youngsters, right? And it's like good to see that, like, man, there's a bright future for the media side of hunting. It's not going to be just glorious kill shots and blood from here on out. You know, there's like there's hope.
Like I remember he they went, I can't remember, Nebraska maybe, and on one of their videos, and they shot like some small muleys, and they were so jacked up about it. And I like, but it's, you can tell it's genuine, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's real right there. Like that right there. If I was a 20-something, you know, like a young 20, like college age kid or whatever, and was watching that happen, I would, I'd be like, man, I feel like I can do that.
Yes.
Let's go do that.
It's a big deal, man.
Whereas, like, if you're shooting giant whitetails
At an outfitter
in the Midwest, like, that's just, I mean, I'll watch it,
it's
you
cool.
know, but it's kind of like one of those things that I watch almost like football. It's just like on while I'm cooking something and I'm not really paying attention to it.
Is it inspiring?
You know? Right. Yeah, exactly. So it is. It's a good look, man. I'm glad you made that point, man. I guess, and that might have like been something, I don't know, that might have been, we talked a lot of archery stuff. I know we talked with PJ Riley as well, but you kind of got on the like whole rig change and you thought a lot lot archery.
Well,
this
you kind of
summer.
occupy yourself some way when it's 105 outside and you're building a house all day. But I made the change to a new bow this year, and
you started shooting heavier arrows because of what you had seen Chris's results, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was really interested in how he always had pass-throughs, and I kind of wanted to make that with him and some other stuff. I kind of like what Aaron Snyder has to say a lot about stuff too. We haven't had him on the podcast, but you know, just
he probably has enough podcasts out there.
He does. Yeah. But and I don't know if we have enough bleeps for them, but anyways, just like the heavier arrow thing was really intriguing to me, and it's almost like a lot of times people will buy a bow and then fit an arrow to it. But like I knew what I wanted to shoot, and I was like, I decided that I would need a new bow to make that actually something that works for whitetail. Because here's the deal: in Western hunting, if you're hunting, especially elk, they're not going to string jump, and they're not super. Their senses just aren't as high as what a whitetails are. Yes, they are way better at the woods than you and I are, you know. But you can deal with wide pin gaps. You can deal with slower arrows. You know, you can you're chunking an axe at them or whatever. You know, but like whitetail, there's a happy medium. You can't just be flinging 580 grain arrows at 210 feet per second at 30 yards. You're gonna get jumped. You know it, and you kind of reach a point where your ethics and efficiency peak and you start going down, where if you can get a heavier arrow to fly pretty fast, you have, well, technically results like I had this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Ooh. So anyway, right a little bit after that, I think we did, because we were really interested in this. We try to always, not always, but we try to almost always grab people for guests that have something to say that can answer questions that we might have, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had Lindsay Thomas come on and talk tree scouting because we were like, because after last year, we had this Shumard find that like really inspired us, you know.
Like, what other types of trees are there?
Yeah. And so we got on with him and talked tree scouting, which was really awesome. I loved that episode. And like anytime I get a chance to just, you know, like I'm a bit partial to a Southern accent. You know what I mean? It's like, it feels like a home or like a friend that I grew up with, you know?
Yeah.
So when we can get somebody on with a Southern accent, which it's kind of sad, but like I feel like there's more whitetail experts in the North. Or maybe they're self-proclaimed. I don't know, but you know, like it just feels like there's more people doing it up north. Maybe there's just more people.
Well, it's
in
just
that part
because
of the U.S.
Whenever you have a much higher chance of smoking down a 170, it's easier to call yourself an expert.
Yeah, that's probably it too.
And nothing against that. It's just it's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Well, Lindsay killed a giant this year, which we did a breakdown about.
Yeah. And, I loved that episode, man.
Yeah,
We've gotten to know him a much better, and
like there's people that I've met through this that like are now straight up friends. And Lindsay Thomas is one of those people. Like I might just text Lindsay about something, just talk. You know, like it doesn't have to be element oriented. And that's what's cool.
Yeah, he's a knowledgeable guy, man. That's what I like. You know, having somebody on who's got a Southern accent and knowledgeable. Sometimes it just feels like, man, we're hitting right up the right alley here. You know? Somewhere, I guess that was like probably, I feel like that was like midsummer, maybe early summer. I don't know exactly, but
it was hot. I remember.
Yeah, it was hot. I do remember that too. But we were trying to get a head start on the tree scouting because we thought, well, these oaks are going to start developing acorns pretty soon. They're going to drop in October, so we need to get a head start. And so we'll talk to him, and then we'll go out late summer and do this. But then I remember we were doing an album. My band and I were doing an album, and I remember sitting in a truck in Oklahoma up in Tulsa, and on one of those trips that they record, and you and I discussed hunting and the internet and how the dynamic between them.
Yeah.
I just remember at the time, I felt like this was one of the most important episodes that we've ever done. I don't know why. I just felt like there was a lot of things that were important that we discussed there, and I felt like we were making some really good points. We spent a lot of time thinking about our points, and that there is a lot. I feel like there should be a lot of weight placed on like how hunting as a recreational activity is portrayed to others that are non-hunters, right?
Yeah.
And so I just remember that felt like a really important episode.
Yeah, and it's almost like that came full circle with some events that transpired in the last, couple days or whatever. And I don't know what this quote is, and help me if you know it, but there's something to where, like, if you don't say anything, then it's a vote for the other guy or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like that concept, like, here's the deal. If you don't portray something, it's like there's a chance for someone to interpret it however they want to. So sometimes you have to say something, otherwise there'll be words put in your mouth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how social media is. We live in a world of captions, and you have to put something in that caption, otherwise people just think you're bloodthirsty killers, right?
Yeah, right. Man, that's a good point. I've never heard it put like that either, I don't think. I mean, you always hear about like, well, don't do this, don't post bloody pictures, don't go into town with the blood running down your tailgate, this and that. Here, don't. But like, you have to do something. You got to do something. So what is it that we do,
Yeah.
It's a good point, man. I like that. Episode 74, God shed his grace on thee. I just remember sitting there in the truck again in Driggs, Idaho. You and I discussed the first leg of my epic 11-day trip from Texas to essentially Red Lodge, Montana. And it was just a fun way to like end the day sitting there watching the sunset. And I had just seen my first moose, like up close moose. We saw one in British Columbia, but it was literally 5 miles away. I mean, you couldn't see it without a spot and scope, and you still couldn't see it in the spot and scope hardly. So I just remember that was the first moose that I had ever seen, you know. And
That's cool.
It was cool. I just remember that episode for some reason. Not long after that, we talked with Michael Hunsucker of Heartland Bowhunter. And we also had Sean Luckdell and Trent Siegel. So, like, all the Heartland guys, you know.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, when I was talking to Mike, I can remember going, you know what? All these guys are cool. It's like, you just kind of wonder, you know, like a big group of guys, there's got to be some guys a tool in there, right? And, like, I remember they were all cool, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and so I was just thinking, these are guys that, like, I think a lot of people would agree they like set the bar high in video production for like the last decade. They've been doing that, right? And just trying to make sure that like these video productions, you know, like I just think of this. These guys are like, they'll have 3 minutes of footage in the middle, like, you know, after the kind of introduction or whatever. And I bet you half the shots will be like scenery shots, you know. That was never done before them, I don't feel like, you know, like who cares about these red leaves on this oak tree, you know? I mean, we're talking about deer here. We're trying to shoot them, you know, whatever. Like, and so I just feel like I have a respect for them for doing that, for also trying, from a videographer standpoint, trying to raise the bar there. And so like with that respect, and also they kind of have a celebrity status. And for a bunch of celebs, they don't act like it. You know what I mean? They're just down to earth, cool guys. And I'm glad that they turned out to be that way in person, as opposed to just like, you know, I've met people that I looked up to that when I actually met them, I was like, oh, I wish I had never met them, you know?
Yeah.
So it was cool to talk about that grizzly hunt too.
Yeah, no kidding. Goodness gracious.
You saw the little stinger on Instagram, didn't you?
It's scary.
It's scary.
Like it's like, remember when you're a little kid and you're watching a scary movie?
Yeah.
And like you had that feeling, like I don't get that feeling as an adult too much with scary movies anymore. I just don't like them.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like. Like I was sitting in my chair and I was like, this bear's about to get me.
Yeah.
It was weird, man.
It was. What about your boy Carl Miller?
Dude.
He's a cool dude.
Cool guy. And we met Carl, who's a professor of wildlife biology at UGA. We met him at the QDMA banquet this past year. We met a lot of cool people there. And I've always been, I don't know, a touch wary of the QDMA because I didn't really understand what their purpose was. I thought they just wanted bigger bucks, and that's not really what it is. And that's just, that event really helped prove that to me. But, man, one of the, like, most knowledgeable people I've ever talked to about a whitetail deer, you know, like, the dude understands anatomy of whitetails in like ways that we'll never know because, well, quite frankly, it's him and a bunch of grad students spending their lives to know about it, you know, and like I'm so grateful for their commitment to it and being willing to share that knowledge with us. Not to mention twice because we had an SD card malfunction and Carl was gracious enough to give us a little bit more of his time.
I was so sad.
I know.
You know what I also appreciate about that is that he did it twice and he has nothing to sell. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when we get a biologist on, you got to think about this as opposed to somebody who has a whitetail brand.
Yeah.
Or a hunting brand or something, or a cookbook or whatever it might be. Like, they have something to sell. So they kind of have a reason to be on there. And not that they're not good people or doing it out of the kindness of their heart sometimes, but like as a biologist, I mean, the only reason that you're getting on these, you know, a media source like this is so that you can spread like findings because you just care about conservation or the animal or whatever, right? So pretty neat that he would do that.
Yeah,
cool guy,
and
man.
just it kind of shows that he cares about people too, because he wasn't a jerk about it at all. Just like he gave us a hard time,
he
being
did.
young bucks or something like that, you know. But just like it almost made it better. You know, it's just pretty neat.
And so we went from sweltering humidity in New Orleans to talking to Carl Miller all the way up to Montana late last summer. And
for the other TRCP Media Summit that we've been to.
Yeah. And I loved Minnesota, but it was pretty nice to be in Bozeman, Montana too.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Like Montana is like
paradise.
Oh my gosh. You can't put it into words, you know? It's just like you know, Montana means mountains in Spanish, right? Or mountain in Spanish. And you see why, because everywhere you look, there's mountains.
Yeah.
Like the whole way around you.
Yeah. And I'm not jealous of them here in early January.
It's cold up there.
But at the time, it was beautiful, late summer. It actually snowed up on the mountains. So it was pretty chilly. And we were welcoming that. And it was just cool to be there, man. We got to go to the Sitka headquarters and do a podcast with Chris Derrick there, and that was just a cool experience because they had some really cool mounts in there. You could see the production line, and then like you mentioned earlier, like kind of seeing the works in conservation there. I guess.
Yeah, it's nice whenever you can tell that like a brand that you believe in really is rooted in what they say they do. You know, and that is Sitka for sure.
And like we saw the whiteboard that they were working on. It's not like they just like have these like sayings around here. It's like, oh, we believe in conservation or whatever, 2% or whatever. I don't know what people would say about their brand or whatever, but like they had like a whole whiteboard dedicated to a project that is conservation oriented. And you could tell like they had been meeting about this and like, how can we give more money to make wildlife more abundant in this.
Live it and breathe it, man.
That's right, man. It's cool. It's cool.
I also ate an apple from the street in Montana, which makes Montana pretty cool.
yeah, it does for sure, man.
And now I want to plant apple trees, which I don't know if they'd grow this in this weather real good, but I don't know if they can deal with our summers.
Dude, our summers don't grow too many good things. Another interview I did while in Montana this summer, which was on my 11-day trip. Which the only reason I went to Montana was to do this interview because I needed cell phone service.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have driven 70 miles into Montana. But I remember this. It was an interview with Mark Drury, and I remember it distinctively as being an interview with one of the most veteran guys in deer hunting videos in particularly. And then I remember it also taking like over a year to get him scheduled and on the line. But
he's real happy to do it whenever we got with it.
Exactly. Yeah. I appreciate a guy that like is that busy and will still take the time to do this for a couple of, like you were saying earlier, a couple of just Joes, So that was really cool of him to do, and really awesome that they could work for like a year with me through email to try to set this up, right? Because I've been told no a lot in my life, as a musician, especially. And man, I'll get in touch with somebody that's like important. And I'm like, man, this is great. We guys finally got a point of contact here. And then they just stop responding after like it doesn't work the first time. You're like, what the heck? Can we please just try to line this up? And they stayed with it, man. So kudos to them on that. And so we went like actually our preseason and all the way up into October was like superstar lined. I mean, it was like, I feel like I'm going to brag on us for a little bit here. Our like preseason in October, if you're a whitetail hunter, you didn't listen to every single episode, man, you missed out on some prime information.
Go back. The Bill Winke episode is one of my favorites, man.
Yeah.
Like, that was really good. And around about that time, I think it was late September, maybe we talked to Bill.
Yeah.
I'm getting, the timelines are messed up here because like when we talked to him versus when we aired the episode is a little bit off. But I think Bill was 88.
Yeah.
84.
No, 84. Yeah.
And
such a nice dude. And we actually talked to him like in March.
Yeah.
That we were on the way to do the Llano video. We were on the way to the Llano to do the Going for Guad 4K video. And he actually asked us about fishing because he likes to fish.
Yeah, that was cool.
So
he likes the Boundary Waters area, which I spent some time up there. So we had a common thing there. But like we talked about string jump, which is something that I've experienced a lot in the last couple years and dealt with a lot. And it's just kind of interesting to get with somebody who has shot a ton of deer with a bow and arrow. And actually, Bill's a tactician. Like, you can tell that through everything he does.
He's like an engineer or something, right?
Yeah.
Mechanical engineer or something.
So he looks at things with that engineering mindset and, like, figures things out, you know? And he's done a lot of with a bow. You can tell, like, by the way he, like, constructs his food plots and everything. Like, he thinks everything through. So, like, he has great opinions on, like, how to approach whitetails and shooting at them.
Yeah. That was a great episode. And so, yeah, I think we went. I I think I missed, thinking about that. But Bill, Mark, and then we had like 91, 92, like I think they're consecutive episodes, whatever they were. Jeff Sturgis and Rod White, like respectively, they like some of the most groundbreaking like whitetail tactical episodes that we've done. I would say, wouldn't you?
That Rod White episode was. Dude, he talked about some crazy stuff in there.
Yeah, we got him on to originally talk about calling.
Yeah,
I think because he had a really cool video online about experience that he had with a big deer calling it in, and so we were going to get him on to talk about calling. We ended up talking about it was one of our longer podcasts.
Yeah.
I think he just talked about everything, man.
Dude. Yes, but like, there's a story in particular that like always sticks out that he told me. Or told us, it was about that buck who like would go and stand at that point of timber and just call those
like
to
a
him.
kind of loud growl thing or whatever. Yeah,
I
know.
Like, that is cool.
Yeah, I would like to see that, man.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like one of those things that doesn't happen, but he spent a lot of time around deer, man.
Yeah.
In big deer country.
Yeah.
Lots of deer.
Yes.
Somewhere, these are all starting to get pretty recent here. Somewhere recently, we did a podcast. It was our first FaceTime podcast, and we did it with Matt Dye and Adam
With
Keith.
our bros from Land and Legacy, man.
Yeah. So, we talked about hunting as a team, like unselfishly working properties together, and for the benefit of wildlife. It was cool. It was. I don't know. They're just. I think the first time we ever talked to Matt and Adam, I was like, I could tell we were going to be bros. Like when I first met you, somehow.
Yeah, we spent about an hour and a half in a hotel room together, and with some ghost music in the background.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing.
But no, we've done a couple podcasts with those guys, and that's one of the things that like I really appreciate about the podcasting world is that there's a lot of us who are just trying to do some good, man. Just want to spread joy and make people happy and talk about fun things, and that's kind of what they're about. You know, they're good guys, family men who just want the best for everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And not to mention get you hype about buying some land.
That's right, dude. I gotta chill around them because they'll take some money right out of my pocket and spend it in the real estate market.
I know it.
Yeah, so they're good dudes for sure. I like that. I like getting on the phone with them and doing that. I think it was 96 was a reflection of like our November in the Midwest. So many close calls this year. But I would say like, for me personally, and maybe I would assume this might be true for you too, because of these close calls and just all the different things of the whole month, I feel like probably like learned more in the month of November this year than ever in my deer hunting life.
Well, it's one of those things where if you put yourself in the position to encounter a bunch of deer, you're going to have a series of experiences that are going to mold what you think about whitetail. And I think that happened to me a ton this year too. I mean, man, how many encounters did we have and how many things did we like experiment and try with and then just crash and burn and then also like have like almost just epic success and like barely lose it, you know? Like, but I think something I learned from this November was the fact that you don't have to kill something to have a great time.
Oh, yeah.
It's better when you do. Don't get me wrong. But, like, dude, I had a blast this November.
Me too.
Absolute blast. I wish we could have hunted more.
Yeah.
You know? And I felt like we hunted a lot.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you on that. Like, I watched, I think maybe our latest video, one of the more recent videos from our late rut trip in Kansas was the morning that kickers came in behind me. And there's like no footage of them. I just remember that morning was just a beautiful morning, man. Great sunrise. There was an owl hooting in the tree. I had a coyote run by me. I tried to shoot, you know. And then it was just frost everywhere and this big, just gnarly, heavy buck from, you know, with two kickers comes in behind me. And it was just like, it was such a great morning. Like, I look back at that and I like kind of yearn for that again, you know, to have that experience.
For sure, man. And it wasn't long after that you took a little solo trip up to Kansas.
That's right. Yep. And that's one of our most recent episodes, I believe 98, where we talked about, I told the story of basically shooting a deer that I think is 12 years old. And I had several years of history with them back to 2015. And, it's called Alone on the Plains, I think. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And, it was like me, this guy who's been hunting out there for a while, and this deer that's been living out there for a while, and we meet out in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
It's kind of a interesting dynamic, a cool story, and, kind of like, I guess the way I would kind of wrap this right here is like, for you, I'm glad that we're hunting buddies. For these people that are listening to this episode, I kind of feel like hunting buddies with them too. Like,
yeah.
I feel like hunting is not complete without buddies that you can tell the stories to. You know what I mean? The story is like, telling the story is fun.
Yeah.
Because like, it's cool to experience that, but then going back and like, it's just fun, man. And so like, thank you guys for listening and allowing us to tell these stories as well, and listening to them, and just being an ear, I guess. And now that kind of brings us to episode 100. We're here.
Boom. Here we are.
It's the opportunity to, that's right. There you are. No, but you're there. So we're here, and this gives us the opportunity to tell yet another story, which is the one from yesterday on public land in Texas.
Man,
Casey.
long time coming, dude.
Yeah.
I had a really good hunt for late December yesterday.
Early January.
Oh, that's true. Oh, wow. That was January 1st. Man.
Ooh, just been cooking my beans in
I
here.
know it, dude. Yeah, I just lost all touch with reality. I don't know what a calendar is. Suddenly I'm from the low country.
That's right. You sure are.
But anyways, we actually did one of those things where we split up and hunted because now's the time of year to try to be as efficient as you can, and being a cameraman is not a very efficient way to kill a deer.
Yeah.
So we split up, and you hunted one place, I hunted a different place on Texas public land, and saw a couple deer. Actually missed a deer due to string jump early in the morning, and what?
Dude, your text, I was straight up laughing in my tree.
What did I say? I don't even remember it.
You texted me and said, I just missed a yearling. And then the next text right after it said, I hate myself. And I like felt bad, but the hate myself I just laughed so hard.
It's just like, there are not a lot of shot opportunities on Texas public land.
Yep.
It just doesn't happen very often. Low deer densities, and not a lot of mature bucks, and this was not one of them, but it's the end of the season. I'm ready to shoot something to put some meat in some vacuum seal bags. Mm-hmm. So I was going to shoot the first legal buck I saw, and lo and behold, 7:45. There's one. How about that?
Yep.
He comes into my shooting lane and stops. I had to grunt stop him, and he's at 26, 27, somewhere right in there. I hold my 30 low on the bottom of his body and shoot right over the top of his back.
Have you reviewed the footage yet?
Yeah.
I mean, like on a bigger screen?
No, not on a bigger screen.
Do you know what happened? Or you just
I missed. I missed real good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I know he jumped, but I don't think I hit a limb, but I might have. My arrow was sitting kind of crooked in the dirt, which is weird, but it might have just kicked up that way because it's so wet that it's a semi-permeable surface these days out there. Anyways, so that deer runs off, and I'm like, okay, well, there goes my 2018 season. It's over now. That's the one deer I had a chance to shoot at. And the morning goes on, and I tell myself I'm going to get down at 10:30, and about 10:15, I see a flash of a deer. I'm like, oh, my gosh, how about that? You just don't expect a deer at 10:15 in January to show up.
Yeah.
And lost it, so I grunted at it. I saw a hawk, like a tarsal gland, and I was like...
Oh, I was thinking of flying bird.
H-O-C-K. Some people call them hawks, too.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I was like, that looked like a buck leg, because that's all I really saw was just the leg, and it was gone in the brush. So I grunted, and it showed back up, same spot, and it was a little spike who might even be, he's probably a 1-year-old, 1.5, right?
Yeah, 1.5.
Yeah, and he's like mills around. He's kind of like looking around. I grunted him again. He kind of looks over, and then I hear something behind me in the creek and look behind me, and there's a buck splashing across the creek who's a little same age class buck that's multi-tined, so he's not legal. I don't shoot him. And I look back around, and the spike has now bedded down in that exact location. I can't get a shot 60 yards away, and he's just laying there. What do I do now? So I was texting Tyler some and kind of like, man, what should I do about this? And we had decided, like, I don't know how it really worked, but like we both kind of came to the conclusion that I should probably grunt at him while he's laying down, not go down and try to stalk him because that would not be a good idea, and just see what happens. And I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, okay, I'm going to grunt. I grunt, and he looks, and then he just goes back to chewing his cud. I'm like, oh, golly. So I figured I'm going to make it sound like there's a couple deer over here over the next however long it takes, and maybe sooner or later he'll get up and meander his way over to me. Well, I probably go through about 20 minutes of grunting every 4, 5, 6 minutes and doing some doe bleeds and some high-pitched grunts and all kinds of stuff. Just talking, kind of, and this deer's hearing some of it, and he's acting like he's not hearing other of it, but he's like flicking his ear around, like he's hearing it. And he gets up finally, like, oh, he's going to come over here. Takes 5 steps to me, and then takes a left into the brush. Oh, and my heart sank. I was like, okay, well, that's my last opportunity right there. Yeah. And then I see him again, another open spot, send some grunts to him, just kind of Hail Marying at this point, and he hears him and makes a sharp cut away from me. I was like, dadgummit, he's gone. Well, at that point, I start looking at my phone because it's like 11:15. I said, I'm going to get down at 11:30. I need to look for a vehicle because I'm going to go to some car lots today because that's another big story. But I got to find another car. That's what I'm looking at on my phone, and I hear, tick, tick. What is this? I look up, and I see this buck heading right into my shooting lane. He'd made a huge loop and came back looking for those deer that he thought he heard over there. Walks out into the open. I get the camera framed up. It's a little bit wide, but he's in the frame. Draw back, grunt stop him almost exactly where I missed Scar at 2 years previously. And shoot, account for drop. I think I still could have accounted for a touch more. I hit him about mid-body high.
That was a good shot.
Dude, I thought so too. And smoke this deer, and he doesn't move another inch.
Like a sack of potatoes.
Like, boom, on the ground. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was like, I guess it was... I don't know.
Were you able to look at it? Did it hit any spine at all?
No, it's down in the ribs.
That's what I thought
half
too.
Mid-body.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how this happened, except that I hit him a touch forward, which isn't forward, but like if you were shooting a light little whitetail arrow, it would be. But I went through both shoulders. Like,
you went through the front one too.
Yeah, not through like the heavy part of the bone, but it's in the shoulder. It's not in ribs. It's in ribs, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like through the scapula. And all I can figure is that heavy arrow with the Exodus broadhead. The Exodus is a pretty wide, pretty big fixed blade, and it's punching. And all I can figure is that there was just enough like kinetic energy, enough shock that all that transferred into him, and it just locked him up, and he was down. And he started bleeding really good, laying on the ground, but I ended up getting down and putting another arrow in him just because he was still breathing. I don't know, and I had hit lungs, so maybe he's just tough. I don't know.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's a strange deal. But either way, he dropped like a rock.
Easy track job.
I know. It was crazy, and then just like this arrow, like white fletching flag, is just sticking up right out of this deer. And I couldn't have been happier in that moment, man. Because you and I have been on this public land Texas quest for so long, and I've passed deer that would score 100 inches more than this deer, probably maybe 80 to 100, whatever. Like I've passed really good 3-year-olds before, and this season I said I'm not doing that. I'm shooting a 3-year-old. I never got a chance. Never saw one, at least up close, or had a shot at one to consider passing. So. This is where I was at. I needed to shoot a deer to put another deer in my freezer. And this is the legal deer that presented an opportunity. And stoked about it.
Oh,
you
dude,
know, it
I
was
was
so
so
cool.
stoked.
It was awesome. And I think what made it even more awesome is the fact that like I used like some serious tactic to make it happen. Like with the grunts and stuff, and like that was super aggressive. And
Yeah.
it worked.
Yeah.
That was weird. I don't know if it would have worked on like 5-year-old deer in the same scenario here around here, you know, but like
Might have worked better.
may have. You might have came right over there. I don't
Yeah.
know. But it was just cool, man. It was a
Yeah.
cool moment. And it was a little bit weird because like he was like dropped right there, and we talked about this before. So I'm like, watching an animal die right there in front of you is a little bit different, you
Yep.
know, because
Yep.
it's you're like really faced with the fact that you're taking a life at
Mm-hmm.
that moment. You know, when they run off and like, oh, we'll go get it in the morning. You know, like that's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was cool, and it
Dude.
was fun, like getting to make those phone calls to like my wife and to you, like, hey, I shot a deer.
Yeah.
Pretty pumped about this.
Yeah, I was sitting there fixing to get some lunch. You kept me in the stand as long as you could because I was literally, I think it was like 9:59, and I was like, dude, I think I'm gonna start packing up at 10. And I'd been thinking this for like an hour, you know,
Yeah.
because I hadn't seen deer in a long time. And at like 9:59 or something, I texted you, and I was waiting on a response. And so like right after 10 or something, you were like, just saw a flash of a deer. I was like, is this dude making stuff up? And so I was like, dang. So I started sitting there waiting. He goes, and you were like, it's a buck. It's this big spike, you know? I was like, man, should I stay here or what? And so I ended up staying like another almost hour in the stand than I wanted to, just because Casey had me hyped up from like miles away.
You stayed another 3 hours than what you wanted to. I know. After you saw deer and they didn't see deer for 15 minutes, you're ready to go.
That's true. That is true. So but when I was about to give me some lunch, and Casey calls me, and I was like, at this point he's been kind of filling me in a little bit, and so finally I texted him at like 11:15.
You said, "What's the word?"
I said, "What's the word?" And you were like, you didn't say anything for like 2 minutes, and that's whatever, that's expectable or expected, whatever, and so then I get a call, and I'm like, oh, he was walking to the truck, or he's getting down or whatever. So you call me, and I'm like, thinking you're gonna just like be like, hey, where you at? You're gonna want to meet up or something like that. And he's like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm just fixing to get me some food here. And he goes, well, you want to come shoot some B-roll? I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Got him. And then so anyway, I got all my stuff together. I got the deer cart, headed out there, and when I got there, it looked like a war zone.
Arrows everywhere.
It was arrows everywhere. They're all sticking in the ground all over the place. I felt dangerous going out there. I mean, there was the miss arrow sticking there, and then I could see the deer just barely, but I could see the arrow sticking up out of the deer. And then I was like, and I knew you had finished him off, so I knew there was 3 arrows somewhere out there.
Yeah.
And
don't come in my lane, dude. Don't do it. You're gonna get shot at.
We need a T-shirt that says "Don't come in my lane." Yeah, so it was. I was super pumped about it too, man. And then as far as my hunt goes, this is a little less exciting. But I had been on a trip for a few days, and a little like Christmas vacation that my parents kind of rented us a house, and we went, kind of took a few days off, and so I was ready to go. And I still don't have meat from this year, so you have to realize that. And so I am like in the same boat as you, except for a lot less meat. But I'm going to shoot whatever's legal, right? Mm-hmm. And so I go into this place. We've hunted it before this year. It's been a while, but I start walking in, and it's dark. I got my flashlight on the ground. I start seeing boot tracks. I'm like, what in the world? How old are these? And I can tell that they're not like from the day before, but it had like rained like a lot, like the last few days. And so, and a lot this year. And so I'm just like, I don't know how old these are. I mean, it's been muddy enough that you can make a deep boot track. Therefore, it might not wash away very quick, too. So I'm like, I don't know how old these are. So anyway, walk my way in, don't see a lot of tracks. I get in there pretty good and start setting up, get up into my stand, and it's starting to get a little bit light. I probably could have got there 5 minutes early, but that's usually the case, I think a lot of it has to do with, like, once you get in there, you kind of like take as much time as you know you have, kind of
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
sure.
if you were to move faster, you might not have been thinking you needed another 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But so I get set up, and I'm like, this particular spot is a stand that we hung. It's like a solo stand. I don't know that two guys can fit in. It's in a little tree, and it's like 5 yards max off of a trail. And this is a good spot. This is a spot where it's a super awesome little funnel, and I feel good about it. I've had bucks come right down the trail and not see me, and so anyway, feel good about it. I get set up, and so I've got my tree stand kind of facing away from the trail. I'm trying to put as much like stuff that sticks out off the tree, like put the tree between it and the deer. And so I've got my camera arm set up on my left as I'm facing the trail, and I've got my bow hanging on this spot on the right on the tree. And I should have tried to find a place to put it on the left side, as being a right-hander, but I didn't want to mess up my opportunity to move the camera arm around and make noise and that kind of thing, right? So I couldn't really find a great spot. But if I could have tried to make it work, I probably would have been successful as well that morning. And so I know deer coming in pretty early. Every time we've sat there, a few times we've sat there, we've seen deer early every time. And so it's starting to get light. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do a quick interview and be done. I'm like, do my interview. And I stood up the whole morning except for like 20 minutes, which was kind of brutal. But
Yeah.
I had to be ready because you can't, it's so thick right there where they're coming from. I mean, they could be 15 minutes or 15 yards from you and you don't even know it, you know? So, anyway, I'm set up and starting to get light and birds start moving around, chirping a little bit, you know, and I hear something back up where we expect they would come from, right? And I hear you know what 2 squirrels like shimmying down a tree chasing each other sounds like?
Yeah.
It's a lot of noise, right?
Yeah.
I hear that. I'm like, oh, it's 2 squirrels chasing each other down an oak tree over. I look back, there's a big tree. It's like an elm or something. It's pretty sizable. It's not huge. I'm like, that's right where it came from. That's what it is. It was deer chasing. It was deer chasing, not
January
squirrels.
1st, huh?
January 1st.
Oh, good.
And so like I'm ready to go. I'm keeping my eyes back there and everything, but I hear that. And then like maybe a minute or maybe 2 minutes after that, I'm looking kind of back that way and I finally catch movement. It's like 15 yards from me. It's a doe and she's like in a hurry. And I'm like, what in the world? So I start like immediately. What I do is I flip my cameras on. I got a GoPro and I got my main camera. So I flip them on so they can get booted up so that I can hit the record button and be ready to rock. So I flip them on. I go to grab my bow and I kind of pull it over, trying to pull it over my rope, which has been real handy this year that I've had a rope attached to a tree. Like it helps me out so much. And I kind of start to get it over the rope and I look back and she's looking at me at 5 yards, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But she's got a buck behind her pushing her. So, and I didn't know that at the time necessarily. I'm just freaking out because I'm trying to get everything ready, right? So she like starts to trot off. I had stopped or whatever, but then she starts to trot off after a second. And so when she starts trotting off, I see 2 more coming behind her, and I'm trying to get my bow over my tether. You know, it's like all up in the way, and my arrow's sticking out towards the tree, and I'm like, ugh, you know. And I finally like get it on the other side, and about that time, the other 2 does are there, and one of them catches just the last bit of movement as I get it over, and like whips her head around. I stop real quick. She's looking at me. They both are acting weird, and she's looking at me for forever, right there, so close. And finally, the other one gets nervous and starts to trot off, and this is the yearling that's looking at me, and so right after she starts taking off, the yearling starts to take off. So I clip on real quick and try to give a little like soft grunt. They didn't stop. And so I just let them go because they were out of my shooting lane really quick. And about that time, I see another thing coming. And at this point, I'm like, this has got to be Big Daddy, right? It's got to be a monster. And so I've got recording. I recorded these does as they're running off, you know. And I move it back over as I see that buck coming to my shooting lane and clip on. And I'm ready. And jumps a little funnel spot and then comes right to me, man. And he's at like 5 yards and he stops. And I'm like, man, is he legal or not? He's a spike with some of the tiniest spikes you've ever seen. But I'm almost 100% certain he had brow tines on both spikes too.
Really?
So, and he didn't, he didn't stay long, and he was nosing those does. But
Yeah.
I could have easily grunt. I think I might have even tried to grunt stop him and just to get a better look at him because it was still pretty early,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they all went on. It's us really pretty bummed because 2 of 3 does like saw me.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel great about going back in there, and there's just not where we hunt. There's just not lots of does. I mean, it's just not a huge population of deer, and so I'm thinking like these are the does using that area, and 2 of them saw me. There ain't no way they're coming back down this trail again. So now I'm kind of at a loss for what to do, and it's raining cats and dogs outside, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I really could use some. And KC said he would give me some of that meat off of the buck that he shot, but I really would like to shoot a whole doe and get some good back straps and that kind of thing too, So anyway, you haven't heard my story, but that's my story on how that went yesterday. I should have killed, but instead of being normal deer on January 1st, they were rutting.
You gotta love it, man.
Yeah.
Good old East Texas deer.
Yeah, that's it, man. So that's how our public land shenanigans have gone. And I've been really struggling lately with like what I should do here at the end of the year. I've got like 3 main options I've been looking at, and I don't know, like sometimes I'm like, man, I should just take a chance and get, it could turn out really good for me. And then like now I'm just almost feeling like with only a few days left that it's probably just going to be like, hunt close to home, as in my other 2 options are 5+ hours away. And so hunt closer than that, save the gas money, and try to make it happen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, man. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, man. I think you got some options on public land to get it done, but it's a gamble because, you're not using baits. So there's no guaranteed thing. And right now you kind of need ace in the hole.
Yeah,
it's kind of tough.
I know. I don't know. I wish where we live we could shoot does this time of year with a bow,
I know, man.
So that's kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. We pay our biologists, right?
That's it.
Somehow we pay them. So that's kind of how things are going right now, and we are wrapping up our 100th episode. Thank you guys for just listening and making this possible, just even from an inspirational standpoint, giving us inspiration to do these things and letting us know that these are helpful and that kind of thing. You can also send us a message in 2019 and let us know like whom you'd like to hear from or what subject you'd like to hear from. That's helpful. We will take those into consideration and try to get some guests on this thing and start lining some stuff up here in the off season so that we can continue to learn and put it all to use in 2019 season.
Yep.
And then we're going to start fishing pretty soon.
Ooh, I can't wait for that, man.
Me too.
I'm ready to put some bags of fish in the icebox.
Hey, that is no lie. Some of my favorite food
I know it.
areas.
I know it. We we're going to the Archery Trade Association. What's it called? The
Show.
ATA show. Yeah.
Yeah,
the show here in a couple weeks. So if we see anything cool, we'll be sure and let y'all know.
Yeah. For sure.
Probably some really nice rangefinder laser deer shooters and stuff like that there. But no, hopefully it'll be beneficial, and we're not gonna spam you with just like these are the top 10 deer feeders of the 2019 season. But, but if we find something cool, we'll let you know
for sure. Yeah. Don't forget there is a giveaway going on OnX Premium membership for the next year. All you have to do is subscribe on YouTube, and you're entered to win. So easy to do. We've got more Kansas videos coming soon.
Oh, I can't wait.
I know. I've been putting them together. I'm trying to stay ahead, and I've been putting them together a little bit, and it's a lot of work because in some of these we whispered quite a bit, so I'm having to type out everything. It's taking forever, but I'll get those up soon. Hopefully a new one will be here when this episode drops. So yeah, check that out. And also, if you have enjoyed anything in these first 100 episodes, give us a 5-star review, man. We would appreciate that a lot. Anything else, Casey?
That's all I know. If you still have open seasons, get after it because there's still a chance. I didn't think there was, even though I preach that pretty often. But I made it happen the other day, and you can too. And one thing, I made a social media post about this, and I'm not a believer in the don't pass on the first day what you'd shoot on the last, because seasons change, things change. I hunt for many more reasons than just big antlers. I love them, but it's a variety of things. It's the experience, it's the food, it's the camaraderie, all that stuff. And whenever you shoot something, be proud of what you shoot and just own it. Mm-hmm. It's okay to shoot a small buck if you want to shoot a small buck. And I guess it's easy for me to say that, and I don't want it to seem like I'm justifying my own actions, but I want you to know that I'm all right with it, and you can be too. It's okay to let them grow too if you want to.
Yeah.
But it's a time and a place for everything.
Man, it's legal. I mean, if it's legal, it's hunting, dude. Yeah. Do what you do. It makes you happy.
That's right, man.
This is something that we get to do, luckily, and hopefully we get to for a long time, you know? And it's not something that we have to do.
Yeah.
It's not drudgery. Do what makes you happy. So I'm with you on that, man. And I'm super proud of your buck, too, because, I mean, in all actuality, like, you probably could have done that whole thing by yourself because you kind of found the place and you went hunting and everything, in that stand and did everything by yourself.
That's my first self-film kill, man.
I know.
I'm pretty stoked about that, too.
Yeah. So, but
not to brag or anything, but it was a cool achievement.
I feel like a part of it, though.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I mean, even though like that particular stand location and everything is something that like is pretty much just KC derived. Just as far as like the whole experience out there and all the like, this being the first deer that you've shot on Texas Public, like it just, I know how many hours that we've put into it together. And like those hours that we eliminated spots are technically hours dedicated to this is still the good spot, So
yeah.
I don't know. I'll take a little credit for it too.
You deserve it. You deserve it for sure.
Anyway, I think we've said it several times, but man, thank y'all so much for being listeners, and God bless. And remember, this is your element.
Living it.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.